Well, we were just kind of wondering, want to talk to you a little bit. Why come to Bowling Green to do a broadcast?
Why not?
Third floor.
Is there a particular reason you guys are looking for? Something about this town?
We wanted to go to relatively moderate-sized cities. We didn't want to go to the Clevelands and the Cincinnatis and the Columbuses and the Indianapolis. Well, we are going to Indianapolis, but that's a change in plans. But the larger cities like Milwaukee and Des Moines, etc. We wanted relatively smaller towns, and we wanted to go to one college campus along the way. And by sort of an accident of geography, because you're on 75 north of Dayton, where we wanted to start, which was about the right size city, we thought this would be a good campus. Good school, state university, large university, and so it was sort of that.
What have you learned so far on the tour?
Nothing. No. It was interesting. When we started out, I thought people's concerns about, primary issues in their mind would probably be evenly divided between national security and the economy. And when I say that, I don't mean when we started out on the trip. I mean when we first conceived of this, 2.5 months ago. And yet almost nobody has mentioned national security. And obviously that's largely influenced by the events of the last couple of weeks. It's almost all economy. And I was interested the extent to which it is here. The fact that now we're in, everything is impressionistic, and you can't extrapolate too much from what you see in a limited period of time. But just in one class, I was interested that every kid in that class, and they're freshmen, are worried about whether the money will be there for college loans to get them through the 4 years at Bowling Green. And then secondly, and it just occurred to me as they're talking about that expresses or would indicate some lack of faith in the quote system, unquote. And so I asked them about Social Security. One of the kids raised the fact that she was aghast at the amount of money that came out of her paycheck during her summer job. And why do I have to pay all that money to FICA? So I said to them, how many of you anticipate that Social Security will be there when you turn 65? Which is, 18 from 65? What is that? Quick. What's 18 from 65? 47. Good. 47. Good for you. Apparently you're a journalism major. I see. But only a couple of them said, yeah, they really have full confidence that the money will be there. That was surprising. And then, we stopped down in Dayton yesterday. Top to bottom, the issue was jobs, but that's an area where they've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. And even today, in what is a pretty solidly Republican town of Wapakoneta, or Wapak, again, it was economic issues, taxes, health care. Mostly these were small business people we were talking to, and their concerns about being able to hire more people, whether they could get health care for their employees, etc.
I'm sorry, You've interrupted. I mean, you moderated debates before. What do you think of the way Sarah Palin handled the last vice presidential debate? Basically, not answering the questions, but then going on.
Well, you have your own feeling about how she handled the debate. Listen, I don't. It's not for me to comment on any of that. That's for people to make up their own minds about that. And I let George do the commenting on the program. I simply ask him the questions. But that really is up to them. I thought, to go a little further than I want to with the answer to your question, I thought both of them had agendas in the debate, and I thought hers was very directly to speak to people, to connect in a sort of a hometown way that you would if you're trying to connect to voters, be you running for vice president or governor or mayor or whatever. And I thought Biden's agenda was much more to go after McCain very directly, and I thought both of them did a pretty good job of fulfilling their agendas. Now you may think, well, one of those agendas may be wrong or right, but what they wanted to do, I thought they did it, and I thought, I can tell you from somebody who moderated debates, it's very hard to get two candidates, or even more than two candidates if you're in two, if you're doing a primary debate, to engage with one another. They tend always to talk to you. And I always think it's more effective if they talk to each other. Who cares, if you're sitting there, you're the two important people or the four important people or whatever. Talk to each other. I always had we did a back-to-back two debates in New Hampshire before the New Hampshire primary. We had 4 Democrats on stage for their hour and a half and 6 Republicans. And I said at the beginning, I want you to talk to each other. Don't talk to me. I'll throw out a subject. You talk to each other. And my sort of fantasy was that somebody would, lay their hand on the person next to them and say, Senator, with all due respect, I think you're out of your mind, or something of the sort. But it's very hard to get them to do that, which is interesting because tonight, you had some pretty direct attacks between the two presidential candidates and the two vice presidential. Well, just one of the vice presidents. Biden is off the trail for the moment because of family tragedy, but there's been some pretty direct attacks in the last 48, 72 hours. And it's interesting to see whether that will follow through into a debate. It's much easier to do that in front of, I said that to George on the air tonight, it's much easier to do that in a rally or in a campaign ad or in someplace where you're removed from your opponent. To do it face-to-face is a little tough.
Well, it's tough human nature to confront someone when you're in front of them. It's easy to talk about them behind their back or on the campaign trail.
You've never talked about anybody behind their back, have you? No, I really wouldn't do that. But it is harder to get them to do it. It is harder to... It will be unusual, I think, if they do it tonight and go after each other a little bit more personally. Although politics is tough business and they may go after one another.
You may have already been asked this, but why was Bowling Green chosen?
It was asked. Just to embarrass you. No. We decided a couple months ago, when we decided to do this, that we wanted to go to relatively small towns, mid-sized towns. We didn't want the larger cities. And we actually picked Dayton to go to first because Montgomery County is a very balanced county in Ohio. And we did want to go to a college campus, and we wanted to spend 2 days in Ohio. And so this is just up Interstate 75, and it really was sort of something of an accident of geography. It also is a good school. People know it. It's a large campus. And so that was sort of the reasons. And also this county, and I'm having a senior moment and forgetting which county we're in. We're in Wood County, right, Wood County. And Wood County is relatively balanced as well. But this is also not a definable, since it's not a definable Democratic or Republican area, I thought we might have, because the youth vote has been pretty strongly balanced toward Obama, I thought we might have a little bit more balance in the student vote here than we might some other places. But and the class we went to today was pretty equally balanced. The editor of your newspaper says it's actually about a 5-to-1 Obama campus, he thought. I don't know what it is, but anyway, that's the reason we came.
Okay, and this is only stop 2, but what have you learned so far? All right, sorry, I came in late. You can make it brief. That's how important. But what have you learned?
I just said to folks here that I was, when we conceived of this a couple of months ago, I thought people's concerns would be sort of equally balanced between national security and the economy, and what we found is almost entirely the economy. And I think that's probably understandable considering what's happened the last couple of weeks.
Mr. Gibson, I know that you mentioned in Dayton you talked about jobs. Here in BG, you're talking with students and loans. Now in Indiana, what's the plan there?
Well, Indiana is an interesting state simply because it's a pretty solidly Republican state. Traditionally has been. Last Indianapolis Star poll had the two candidates dead even there. Indiana is interesting to me because of somebody who has to work on election night. It's an early closing state. Ohio's an early closing state as well. Closes at 7:30, and Indiana closes at 7. And if those two states go Democratic, it'll be a very clear indicator that it's going to be a very strong Obama night.
Are you in the top or bottom sleeper on the bus?
They took the beds out of there. And when we used to travel in those buses for Good Morning America, they left the bunks in. But the bunks are out, so it's all a traveling office. I got to run to a meeting.
Thank you.